at the curriculum, you look at the curriculum that is very redundant, and looking at how do you want to use technology to, scale this kind of curriculum that you already see is backward in many ways. So there are a lot of infrastructural systems that are broken, right? You also look at the skill and capacity of educators to be able to use technology. There's something around the instructional core, right? The instructional core really has to do with three major components. You're talking about the student, the content that is being delivered, and the teachers. These are three very important things for learning to take place. Now, if you bring technology into this mix and you're saying, okay, I'm going to use technology to help students learn better, right? By maybe creating assessment tools and all of these things, you now ask yourself the question, if I create an assessment tool that is state of the art, modern technology, what is that assessment tool going to be assessing? It's going to be assessing old and redundant content in curriculum, which is the second part. Now, you look away from that part, you go to the teacher part. Are the teachers even skilled enough to actually take a mobile phone and enter the name of their student and enter the scores, right? So they are like different moving pieces and moving parts. And, everything is really around in the infrastructure. So I think for us to really begin to see gains in education technology, we need to fix all those broken parts. And I think we're on the right path, right? We have a lot of people coming to the space, building edtech products. When we, have many of these innovators coming with their innovation, when there are more handshake systems for them to come together, what we will now begin to see is infrastructures being built. We've seen it in fintech. Fintech is lucky to have NIBs, for instance. With NIBs, they can build their Flutterwave, they can build their Paystack and transfer money to and fro. And that's something we want to see in education for us to begin to see the gains in education technology.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Ua, do you have a question for me?
Yes, I was just going to ask my very, very interesting guest. I was going to ask you something. You touched on fintech. Yeah. Do you see the amount of what's it called? Failed fintech called companies that we're having now, based on the fact that, because will I call it maybe because maybe there's easy access to entry, the barriers to entry is not so high. So you're having a lot of companies, coming into the fintech space, and as the way they are coming in, they're also crashing out. Yeah. Do you see that happening if we also kind of like experience the flood within the educational space? That is one. Secondly, you touched on something very important. I'm currently doing a course with a university, and they said, they wanted to do a hybrid structure. But I can tell you that what you said, the gap between the instructors, right, and the technology, there's a wide gap, right? Yeah. So how do we intentionally find that gap and close that gap between the instructors? Because again, even if we have built the content and it is so good, if the instructors are still in the Stone Age, there will be problems, right? Exactly. So how do we bridge that gap? Because right now we are facing that challenge with the course I'm doing. Because it's hybrid, the instructors are not able to understand what a hybrid structure would look like. Then the third question, again, would be the system in itself, right? If you want to truly build a hybrid structure or truly digitize education, right? What would an ideal classroom or learning center look like? How is it going to be structured? Is this something that truly we can afford right now?
Interesting questions, right? And I'm going to start from the first question, right? So the first question, right, you mentioned around the coming in and crashing out of financial technology companies. I think that, of course, we're going to see that trend in education technology as well. And that's why I mentioned something around the handshake system. The truth is, if you look at fintech, most times, some of these products are actually, if you bring like 10 of them together, they are meant to form just one single product because they are just features of one particular big product that one can have. And we can already see that in edtech as well. There are a lot of companies springing up, doing a lot of things. And, we know, some of us know in the space that the only way that, we can thrive is for us to build handshake systems. So how do we get to collaborate? So if you're building an assessment tool powered by AI, and I'm building a teacher training platform, the other person is building a school management system, someone else is building a learning management system, can we all come together to build this robust technology that will power teaching and learning, right? With that, we all are very, very significant, become relevant. But if we don't do that, right, the truth is, I mean, the people with the greatest backings go ahead, and then those with low backings definitely will crash out. And that's what is happening in fintech as well, right? And the truth is, even with much more, standardization, as standardization comes into edtech as well, people are going to crash out, companies are going to crash out. I mean, either they crash out or they go the way of merger and acquisition. For fintech, for instance, many reasons, or most of, like, one of the reasons why many fintechs are crashing out is because of, policies coming up. The government comes up tomorrow and they come up with another license that you need to purchase, and the company has, wasted money trying to build a product when they now need to buy a license that they can't. So there are just a lot of issues there. So as standardization comes into education technology as well, we are going to see companies crashing out. But we are also going to see a high success rate because there are going to be a lot of innovations that will be tested and proven and then will stand out. If whether we like it or not, I mean, when you look at the technology ecosystem in sub-Saharan Africa, fintech actually has a number of unicorns that we are very proud of. And it is because a lot of people rushed in and tried to build something. And that's why we can see those who won and are still winning and are still building, amazing stuff. And that trend is also going to be in education technology as well, as we see a huge influx of people coming into that space. The second question around bridging the gap between instructor and, technology itself, I mean, I think it's just very obvious that, one, we need to build a skill base. We need to build a knowledge base. We need to be able to build a network of resources that educators can, definitely leverage on. There's a quote that was shared at the beginning of this discussion and conversation, and it is the fact that, education will not replace teachers. It will only replace teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers is transformational. And that's the truth, and that's the absolute truth, right? So a lot of educators definitely will be replaced because they are not able to use technology. And the reason why we are not seeing that replacement happening at a rapid rate is because we've not seen a mass movement of educational professionals who are well-skilled and well-versed in technology. Right? Look at the banking system. A lot of people had to be flushed out of the banking system when the issue of using computer came to fore, right? And that's how it's going to happen in education technology. So if a school knows that, the school beside me now has 10 teachers that can use technology, as a school owner, I need to look for teachers who can use technology. So there will be competition based on that. And you start seeing people trying to, advance and upskill themselves. For instance, the work we do at Schoolinga is to upskill teachers and place them in partner schools for job opportunities. And one key thing that we train them on is the use of technology. So as we train more people, as other organizations train more educators to use technology, we are going to bridge that gap. So I think that knowledge base, that skill gap needs to be closed, right? Another thing is the fact that access to digital infrastructure, there has to be a lot of investment in digital devices. Can schools begin to have computer labs that are sustainable, computer labs that are very well maintained, right? Can we have access to, electricity and internet, right? So infrastructure definitely needs to be invested in. We can form public-private partnerships. However, we want to come about this. We can see models. Some of them are happening right already. We have some public schools who are using, technology labs in their classrooms and all of these things, right? Some private schools are well advanced. So the more we see of those kind of development, right, we'll see that the gap between these two definitely will be bridged at some point. And the third around, you were talking about what a digital classroom will look like. That question is truly aspirational for me. And anytime I talk about it, I used to it sounds as if I'm dreaming wide, right? So, and for me, my own sense of aspiration, with education technology and what technology can do to education is, it's sort of like a paradox. I think that, education will become centralized on one part and it will become decentralized on another part. And I'm going to start from the decentralization of education, right? I think that, in the coming future, near future, what would happen as a digital classroom is the fact that as a digital student, maybe in my SS2 or SS3, I can attend 10 schools at the same time. So what that means is the fact that I can choose to go to Corona to attend mathematics class because I like the mathematics teacher in Corona. And I can go to, Glory Spring School to attend my English classes because I like English, the English teacher in that place, right? And I can go to YouTube and go and learn physics because there's somebody who just releases amazing videos that can teach me physics in an easy way, right? So, and because of that, the fact that digital technology is now everywhere, people can create content anywhere and share anywhere, right? Schools will now begin to think about creating digital versions of their schools. And that's what will enable the digital student to be able to attend different schools at the same time. Now, that's just an example of decentralization. There are other examples. Now, let's come to the centralization part. I think assessment will be more centralized. So what it means is the fact that people study because of assessment, right? People study so that they can pass their WAEC and jump and get into school. So what will happen is the fact that the exams like IGCSE, WAEC, and all these examinations will find common ground and become more centralized, because students now are not studying only from their own country. They are studying from other countries as well, having access to content from other countries. So I think education will become more centralized with technology. I think education will be more accessible, more cheaper, and be more flexible, so that, you know, children in marginalized communities will be able to have access to education because they can now work and then go to school at the same time. They are not locked within the four walls of the classroom because of the flexibility that technology offers. I think that there's just a whole lot of good that can happen as a result of education technology.
I mean, this last thing you just said, the idea of going to multiple schools, you know, is truly very inspirational. It's something to absolutely. In fact, I look forward to the day that can happen. Like, really.
Yes.
But I want to quickly ask you, considering the fact that you work in the space, what are the challenges that you have faced? I mean, outside of infrastructure, you've spoken about infrastructure. Are there any issues around language or culture, you know, cultural differences, you know, in terms of how people perceive the learning process, or how they even want to get on board the learning process? Especially because you said that you do quite a lot of work with the teachers. And of course, for learning to take place, the teachers are very key components in that process. So what are these challenges that you have faced?
Interestingly, I think the biggest challenge is the resistance to change. A lot of people don't want to accept that technology is here and technology is here to stay. A lot of people still want to live in their bubble, and just like be shielded by that bubble, think that things are just normal and things are going the same way. But every day technology gains penetration, and is what we have seen. So I think there's a big resistance to change that we are facing. We have educators that you ask them, come and learn how to use digital tools. And they tell you, if I learn it, what will happen? Will my salary increase? You know, you have schools, you go to schools, okay, we have those training programs for your educators to be able to build their skills, right? And be able to improve learning outcomes in their classrooms as a result of that. And they're like, what will happen if I do that? Would that, you know, increase my bottom line? Will I charge my parents more because I'm doing teacher training, right? So there's a whole lot of, you know, resistance to change, and not just even to the teachers and the schools alone. We're also seeing on the part of the parents as well. You know, we have a lot of parents who are very open to technology. They want their kids to start learning coding from age 7 or age 6. They want their children to be involved in STEM classes. But we also have a lot of parents who, you know, the only stories of technology they know are the stories of the harmful part of technology, you know, cyber crime, cyber theft, cyber bullying, and all of this. And that's what they know about, you know, about technology, and that's what they choose to advance and storytell. So I think that you know, mindset that actually is open to embrace technology is something that, you know, I don't know how we want to import it and, you know, impart it into people's minds, and people see the real value that education, that technology offers, right? So I think that mindset change, that mindset shift needs to happen, and that's one of the big challenges. So for instance, for my company, if I'm going to pitch my company to a potential customer, I need to first deconstruct their mindset before I now introduce my solution or my product. So it's like me marketing two things. One, I'm marketing mindset change and mindset shift, and then I'm marketing the real product itself. So it can be very challenging, you know, on that level, right? I also think that, you know, the part of, you know, this awareness creation around technology is really low, right? We have a lot of what a media, for instance, you know, media organizations like, I mean, I'm currently, you know, on a TV show currently, right? And speaking about education technology, I hope that we're able to have more of this, right? That will help to, you know, educate people about education technology and help them, you know, adopt education technology, right? I also think that how this also embeds into our systems is what is very, very important for us to talk about, right? The systems that we currently have, the systems of employment, there are a lot of things like, for instance, when you speak to an investor and you're talking about education technology, the investor will tell you, if your education does not translate into income transformation, then I'm not interested in hearing it, right? Whereas we know that long-term investment is what is required in education. ROI in education it comes in very, I mean, you can't even measure it. It comes in many years after. So how can the different systems that we have support the advancement of education technology? So systems of investment, not only in resources, in time, in effort, how can it support the advancement of technology? So these are like, okay, sorry.
Sorry, Olubashel, for butting in there. Let me just quickly add, because I see that the time is
In
running.
fact,
This one you touched a very sensitive part. You see, this ROI matter is a big deal, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because now, education, like you rightly alluded to, is not an immediate thing, right?
yeah.
It's not something that so how do we even intentionally now kind of like how do we sell that narrative? How do we drive the narrative to say, okay, oh, we need patient funding.
Yeah.
There's something that is called patient capital, right? We don't need those capitals that are in a hurry, because
Mhm.
again, this is what we're building, right? Education
Yeah,
is patient fund.
yeah,
Globally, in the places where we are praising them that they have great educational systems
mhm.
and all of that, it is people that have
Yeah,
gone through those schools that go back to
yeah,
like give back, and they give
exactly.
back in hundreds of millions of dollars,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
how do we start to drive intentional funding towards the educational space?
Mm, mm. That's a big question. I don't think it's a code that has been cracked yet. It's something that we are thinking about, right? So I am a huge proponent that there has to be innovative funding methods or funding, options available to education. I think we need a lot of asset financing. I think we need a lot of trust funds created to advance education. If organizations like, if banks are not able to give loans, can banks invest in a trust fund? Can your FMCG companies invest in a trust fund that will definitely come back to invest in education? I think a lot of high network individuals that need to start investing in education as well as sort of give back, right? I also think that, and that's why we're talking about the mindset shifts.
okay.
There has to be a fundamental shift to mindset in terms of, I'm sorry, just to say this, just to make this last,
All right.
right? Right. So, and this
Okay.
is me just like looking at countries like Finland, where we see as very, great countries when it comes to education development. If you're talking about education development, you mentioned Finland as one of the top countries. And what happened for them was the fact that improving education became a political will for them, right? They looked around themselves back many years ago and said, we are largely an agrarian nation. We don't have too much money like the European countries around us. What can we do to have competitive advantage? And they said education it is. And that's how they had to work on improving their education. For you to be a teacher in Finland, you must have studied for 6 years, have a master's degree before you can teach in a primary school. It's their law. And
Okay.
their education is
So, sorry,
affordable.
I'm so
So there's a
sorry.
political
You
will.
have to
Yeah.
come back. I mean, you have to come back. It's very obvious you're very passionate about education, and we need to keep having these conversations if we want to, have sustainable growth in all sectors of the Nigerian economy. Thank you so very much for coming on the show. We look forward to having you once again. We have a comment from Ume Nelly. He says technology has helped the students to get access to certain materials for learning. It has also been a useful tool for teachers to enable them expatiate their teaching and ease their work, which is in tandem with what our guest tonight just said. But before we go, please do ensure you follow us on all our social media platforms, Instagram, which is at Ways Show Africa, and Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow all our social media engagements. And remember to like, share, comment, and invite your friends and family to watch us and follow us. If you missed today's quote, here it is again. Technology will never replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers is transformational. This is by George Couros. See you tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring you another interesting and great conversation.